Welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We have on the phone Mark Slade of Keller Williams. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great today, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Of course, those who don't know, Mark is a preeminent real estate agent out of Keller Williams in Maplewood Village, and also his many websites. And he's been on with us before, but we thought it's about time for another look at the market in Maplewood for the fall. And you and I were talking earlier. You said that's the question that comes up. What is the market like now, and anything sort of unusual, good or bad, that's driving things?
Well, the most prominent note of what's driving the market is that we don't have any inventory. Our inventory is substantially depleted compared to what it normally is. It's usually 2.5 times its current level, so that's a bit of a surprise. And obviously, in the world of economics with supply and demand, lack of supply drives up price. And so what we're seeing is that prices are way up for the first 8.5 months of the year. We are looking at prices being paid of $565,000 on average for the 165 closings we've had for properties listed in 2014. That is up from $489,000 in 2013, and that's just huge. And that's up again from $468,000 in 2012.
So it's 564,000 is the average?
$565,163.50 is the average of the 165 properties listed in 2014 that have closed.
Oh my God! And then how many are up for grabs right now this week?
Well, we have 65
in Maplewood only.
In Maplewood only,
yeah.
We have 65 active properties.
Okay, and you said
some of them are an attorney review, which means they're active legally,
right,
but less active than they might be if they didn't have offers accepted. There's another 48 homes under contract. That's also a very high ratio. Usually the under contract ratio is in the neighborhood of 20%, not 66%.
So you have fewer homes, but more of them are under contract, it sounds like.
More homes under contract, yeah. That is correct. And like I said, 165 have sold this year.
Wow.
Also, I like to do a measure of days on market. Mm-hmm. And days on market in 2012 for the year averaged 64 days to sell property. Last year in 2013, it was 54 days. This year, are you ready? 23 days.
So less than a month.
Average length of time to sell a home.
That's just about a little over 3 weeks.
And then we're going to go to the most impressive measure, is that in 2012, buyers paid 98.1% of last listed price. What do I mean by that? You know, sometimes homes are listed and they don't sell, so somebody lowers the price.
Right.
Okay? In this particular case, the last listed price is the price recorded as the final list price. So in 2012 for the year, we averaged 98.1% of the final list price.
So people are getting what they're asking for, or close to it.
It's even better, Joe.
Really?
It's even better, because last year that inched up to 99.4%.
Wow.
They paid $489.1 versus $492. And now the real drum roll, that should really be an entire band at this point in time, for the year, it's averaging 102.5% of final list price.
So people are getting more than they're asking.
People are getting much more on average for their properties this year than they were last year.
Now, is a lot of that because there is less of an inventory, or is that just a recent thing, the last couple of months?
Well, you know, it's lack of inventory is really the key, in my opinion. I've never seen inventory so low.
Now, why is that? Is it just, are people not wanting to move out of Maplewood, or are they...
A couple things.
Yeah.
In 2013, we sold 321 homes.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2012, we had sold 251 homes.
Right.
That in itself was a pretty substantial increase in actual consummated sales. Well, what does that do to the inventory? That depletes the inventory.
Right.
So we started 2014 with far fewer homes than we would have intended. Then we had 3 months of polar vortex and snow and snow and snow. So the first quarter of this year was really a dead year in real estate.
I see.
What was on the market we still have people that are always looking for homes.
Mm-hmm.
We still have the bonus babies, so the people that get their big bonuses or whatever bonuses they are in December / beginning of January. So they got money that they want to spend on their new homes. So a lot of money chasing very few properties is what ended up happening. And so the inventory has continued to sell at an accelerated rate because no one's been able to get property on the market. Now, in the past few weeks, last 2 weeks specifically, I think that Maplewood has added probably at least 15, if not 16 or 17 new listings. So taking that's over 20% of the number of actives currently on the market. So we are seeing an influx of listings, but to put the market back into some kind of stabilization or equilibrium, we need to get that inventory up to at least 120 homes, and we are far from it.
So now here we are in September. It's getting to be the end of the year. You know, how does this time of year rate for sales? People are obviously back in school, so maybe they don't want to move. Kids are in school, or is it what is the fall situation usually for people who want to sell their homes?
I would equate the real estate market to that of a camel. Camel has two humps or two bumps, and so September, October is the second bump. It's people are back from their long vacations in summer, okay, and they're not dealing with excessive heat any longer. So we're always going to have people that have to sell their homes because they're either retiring or they've had some unfortunate family situation or they've had a job relocation.
Right.
Always an underlying number of homes that have to be listed regardless. And then there's the second bump, the fall market as we call it. It starts with those people that now they've seen what people can get and are getting for their home, and they want to, in quotes, cash in on it. They were thinking about it, but the last few years, while the market was on a downtrend, they decided they would hold off. So now there's less of a reason to hold off, and as a result of that, they're putting their homes on the market.
And how are interest rates now? Aren't they kind of inching up a little, but still good?
They're inching up again, and this is, I have to say that based on the last month, I'm getting a little bit nervous that maybe these mortgage rate indicators and predilectors are going to be right. That we're going to get back up to at least 4.5 and maybe on its way to 5. Because I don't see the push back down that normally has been occurring in the marketplace. I've seen what happens. We get a bump up of 5 basis points, and then between a week to 10 days later, we're back down to where we were. It's not happening. I'm not seeing the recoil. I see a little bit, but not enough. So what I'm starting to see is some progression, meaning increase in the interest rates. Now, right now it's 4.21. It's still pretty damn good relative to historical rates.
I remember when we bought our house in Maplewood 14 years ago, our rate was 8.25%. And we've refinanced many times, and we actually have a very good rate that we locked into. But how much does that go into your low inventory that people don't want to move or sell because maybe the next home is going to be a tough finance? If they want to finance a new home, then maybe they have a really good rate now. Or does that never really rate into it? If people want to move, they're going to move.
Yeah, people that are going to move are pretty much going to move. Once they've made up their mind, it's not usually because of the economics, although it could be. If you're an empty nester, and maybe you're even retired, then you don't need New York City to be on the train line, and then you don't need schools. And so you look at the entire equation, you're going to say, listen, I can move half an hour west, and I can cut my costs by 40%, for the same size home. And I don't mind if I'm a little more rural. Or maybe I'll move down a little bit south, okay, and be closer to the shore and have fun with that. Or I'll make the big move.
To a whole other area.
To Arizona or North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, California. So,
but isn't the Northeast, isn't our area still the best in terms of keeping values and values continuing to go up, considering what other parts of the country have gone through in the last 5-10 years with values dropping? We've stayed strong, right?
Yeah, we did not have. There were 4 states that had or actually 5 states that had 5 horrible, devastatingly horrible market responses to the last real estate depression. Okay, and they would have been the Las Vegas area, Nevada. They would have been California, They would have been Florida. They would have been Michigan, and even parts of Arizona, where there had been so much rampant building.
Right.
And then all of a sudden things collapsed. So now people aren't finishing the properties, and there's no one moving. So those areas saw, decreases in average price of up to 40%. Whereas in our area, not just New England and New York City Metro, our area certainly is propped up, most especially because of our proximity to New York City. So we live in our own little bubble, thankfully.
Yes.
So our property values didn't drop any worse than 25%, which was a 15% difference.
Right.
So,
And for those who don't know, what is your best, if they want to reach out? And of course, Mark will talk. If you talk to him, you're thinking of selling or buying, you can reach out. He'll give you great advice and guidance. What's your best email or website, I should say?
My best website is goodhomesforgoodpeople.com, and my best telephone number is 917-797-5059. And lastly, my best email is sladehomes@gmail.com.
We know them well, and of course, Mark and I talk often just because I'm always interested in the information, but he knows his stuff, and sometimes it's just good to, and I always say when we post, for those who see us on Sunday, we always post link to your listings of home open houses, and we always say, go see what's bearing. You never know what your home is worth.
People, I think it's kind of fun to see homes on the market, because you may have always had idle curiosity. What does the inside look like? You might get design ideas, or you could be evaluating how a home might better fit your needs. I mean, I work with people downsizing. I work with people that are upsizing. I work with people buying first-time homes. So, when people get older, one of the things they inclined to love about most of our inventory is that we're either center hall or side hall colonials with anywhere from 10 to 13 steps to go from the first floor to the second. So a split level with 6 steps is a lot easier to deal. So you get a whole slew of reasons why people would want to look at new houses and, maybe improve the quality of their life for what their needs are.
Yes, and you and I have talked about this. What I always am curious about, you and I, we discuss how do people get their homes ready. What's sort of the biggest mistake? Do you find people willing to really do what you need done to their homes to get them ready to sell, or do some just? There's always an as-is. There's always a big review. What do you find people are willing and not willing to do?
I'm going to just tell you that it's always it's a wide variety of responses there.
Yeah.
The people that have the capability financially to embrace the suggestions we give them for staging and preparing the home for market, they will be the ones that will sell the quickest and for the most money. The homes that do the least and or sell as is, well, selling as is and putting that into the terminology to protect the seller, I mean, you're just basically telling people that your house isn't worth anywhere near as much as your neighbor's, number one, and you're starting to limit your marketplace because people want to know what that is, what's broken, what's not working. So, unfortunately, there are times that we have to make the best of an unfortunate situation. Maybe you're downsizing, you don't have the income anymore, and you certainly don't have the reserves to put into what needs to be done. That's unfortunate, but we just make the most of it.
What is the biggest? Go ahead. No, what is the biggest mistake people make when they're trying to sell or when they're trying to buy?
The biggest mistake that people tend to make when they're trying to sell is thinking, I'll sell it on my own. It's not to say it can't be done, but statistically speaking, they're giving up potentially an extra 7% statistically on their home. Because, this is the joke. You ask an investor flipper, as we call them, they want us to find those pocket listings that aren't even on the market. Or even better, find that person that's on the verge of listing and offer them cash and say, I'll buy your home for X. But here's the irony. That's what they want to buy because they know they have less competition and will pay less. Conversely, when they go to put the house on the market, do you think they list it as a for sale by owner? No. They put it on the market and get the most possible exposure they can because they know the market will get them the highest price. So the biggest mistake that some people will make is the assumption that by cutting off the market, they will be also cutting off their nose to spite their face. because they won't have the benefit of anyone else that might have interest in that property. The second biggest mistake people make is doing what you can do. Just because you're as is doesn't mean you still can't declutter, move things into the basement, move things into the garage, do something with minimal expense to at least make the rooms look and feel bigger. That would be the next most common mistake.
What about buyers? People are coming into Maplewood and looking, and they know all the great press we get, and probably will get more. What do they not do right that maybe they could do better to get the best deal and the best home?
Well, from my experience, the one thing that buyers may not do as well, and maybe not to their a little bit to their detriment, would be not actually meeting a variety of realtors, interviewing them, and figuring out who can best do the job for them.
Interesting.
So what ends up happening all too often, buyers come out, they meet agents at open houses, okay? They may start getting bombarded with emails from various agents, and the end result is they lock into the agent all too often that gets them, the house, so to speak, or puts them in front of a house, okay, when in fact that may not really be the best agent that fits their needs. I mean, there are agents that work, they do 5 deals a year, they work part-time, they may not really know the inventory. The buyer may decide, I'm going to pay, because I'm coming out of Brooklyn and I just sold my $700,000 property in Brooklyn, I can spend $600 in Maplewood, but they may not realize that they didn't have to spend $600.
Right.
They spent $550. I mean, there's a house on Harvard in my neighborhood last year, actually a year and a half ago, and the sale price was 30% higher than any historic sale price. When you look down to see who the realtor was, it was an out-of-town realtor.
So they didn't even know the area.
Realtor working exactly. So what you want to make sure that the agent that you're going to hire to help you buy knows the area, knows how to work analysis, can provide you with an explanation as to the value of the home, what's good about it, what's not so good about it. And then the other thing is that all too often, an agent says, you told me you wanted a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath property. Or actually better, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property. So why did you send me the 1.5-bedroom? I'm not going to look at it. And the reality is, well, the 1.5-bedroom isn't as valuable as a 2-bedroom, bathroom. Clearly. However, for $5,000 to $10,000, you can buy this house for $450,000 instead of $500,000. It's up to you how you want to play it. So that's where a good agent can add value and insight, okay? Because to me, the good agent is going to get the buyer the best possible property for the best price. And that doesn't exactly mean it's always what the buyers ask for.
And I would assume with that, and again, we're talking to Mark Slade at Keller Williams Real Estate, and you also have to. It's sort of like a doctor. You have to ask questions, and you have to really make sure the agent knows what you need. And don't, I always say they're dealing with your biggest investment for most people. You have to ask questions and demand things and make sure they know what you need. I would assume, right?
Well, I had clients today. They fell in love with a property. They're looking to downsize. They fell in love with a property. They want to put an offer in. They have a capability of buying this property without even getting their property on the market for sale. That puts them in a great position. But I basically said to them, I need to know that you have had a conversation with a lender who is going to tell you that you can ultimately afford this property based on a most conservative yield for the sale of your home. I said, because frankly, I'm happy to have the sale, and in this case, a sale and a listing, but I don't want an unhappy client that finds out I bought something that I really can't afford.
Right. Okay, the last question, and again, great to speak with you as always. What is sort of the status of Maplewood? What makes Maplewood so attractive these days? And what maybe, we know that high taxes are tough, although they've been sort of leveled off. But is it Midtown Direct? Is it the schools? Is it everything we always think of, or is there some new attraction, or is there something that's new that's maybe cutting into the glow we've always had?
There's certainly, from the statistics, nothing cutting into the glow. That'll tell you. But I would say the same primary reasons why people or why Maplewood would be on anyone's radar would be, well, a 25 to 35-minute train ride to Manhattan, which for me was less than my time on the subway when I lived in Brooklyn.
That's gold.
Okay. Especially if you work. Even more to the point, if you have a two-person family and you both work in Manhattan, that's a lot of time.
Yes, I used to commute it, and that was a godsend on many days. And you can go Manhattan, you can go to Penn Station or Hoboken, where I always went, which is a lot more humane.
If you like to go to theater, I mean, listen, I've made it home in 20 minutes.
Yeah, there's there's certain direct trains, you're here in 25 minutes, 28 minutes.
Or even a car. I mean, you drive in.
What about the taxes? That doesn't seem to be keeping people away, right?
I'm going to get to that in a second. The second most important reason why it's still a hotbed for people is because our school system has continued to rise in terms of the ratings for the high school. So we've now climbed to number 47 in the state from number 75 2 years prior. That continual progression gives people hope because schools are certainly a huge part of most people's decision making.
Yes.
Okay, even if they don't need the schools, it's their resale that it protects.
Yes.
And then lastly, the variety and friendliness of lifestyle in Maplewood.
Yeah.
Now, I tell clients to come out here, when I give them the tour, I tell them to budget 45 minutes for me in the car and an extra 20 minutes for every home that we end up adding on the trip if you want to start to see a few homes to get an idea of the neighborhoods. And I said, please try to include time to hang out and have a beer at St. James Gate or have a meal at Arturo's, something to that effect, so they can see how we really live. I don't want to sell them just a house. I'm selling them a lifestyle, and that lifestyle is Maplewood. Hence my blog, Love to Live in Maplewood. I mean, the key is making sure they understand what they're really buying into. So you're buying into great schools, you're buying into phenomenal convenience to Manhattan, you're buying into a town that's like Brooklyn West. It's all things to all people. That's what makes Maplewood so hot.
It really is. I mean, you have such a diversity, not only minority versus non-minority, but we have $1 million homes, as you know, but we also have more affordable homes, and the gay population gets such acceptance. You almost get spoiled here.
We do get spoiled.
Yeah,
we do get spoiled, but actually,
and the town events are fun. They don't overdo it, but it seems like they have a real positive. And we also, and I talked to the township committee members about this, we have a real sort of exception to the Jersey corruption government rule. This is such a corrupt state in many ways. You don't hear about it here, ever, and I look for it, and it doesn't happen.
Yes, I do.
It just doesn't happen. It's a very well-run town. They have their ups and downs, but you don't get a hint of corruption, and I think a lot of that is because it's the kind of place where just people who are here don't go that way. They're too busy having other positive elements.
Exactly, and I don't want to duck the other question that you asked.
No, go ahead.
The taxes. So the interesting thing that has occurred is that our effective tax rate, which means the average taxes paid versus the average being paid for the homes, is actually lower than our neighbors in South Orange now, and lower than it is in Montclair. While it's still not as low as buying in Millburn next door the other way, the challenge is to buy the same home in Millburn because their school is now number 5 or number 7, depending on which publication you read or view online. You will pay 30 to 30% more for the same size home than you would in Maplewood. So there's a lot to be said for that as well. So tax, as much as, yes, I'd like my taxes to be lower, who wouldn't? The reality is that at the moment, the taxes in Maplewood are a little bit more friendly than our neighboring towns in South Orange and Montclair, which when I include Montclair and South Orange, it's because same issues with diversity in terms of a variety of life. The only difference is that we have flipped places with Montclair's high school. So we've gone to 47 where they were. They've gone down to 75 where we were.
Excellent.
So that's been great for us.
Great. Well, thanks as always to speak to us. Again, that's Mark Slade at Keller Williams. You can get his information. You can also just click on the ad on our site here, and that'll take you right to his website. You can find out if you should sell, if you should buy, and how to go through it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Mark. As always, be well.
You too.